Hello everybody, Russian Batman here, back with another video, and this is another random rants. Yes, I am going to be, rant, meaning good kind of, rant, not a bad kind of, rant. This is about God of War, the new God of War game. It looks sick. Also, I was gonna put God of War gameplay on the background, but it decided not to, so I just got a random drawing. But God of War. Yeah, the new one came out, Ragnarok. I was super hyped for this game to come out here. I got a drink. Mm. But yeah, let me talk about it. So I didn't play the game. Just to be fair, so I'm not gonna be talking about any gameplay stuff. This is all story stuff, so there will be, I'll give my brief thoughts and then I'll give spoilers. But basically, so yeah, I only watched a gameplay video. There's an 18-hour long gameplay video of just like a playthrough of the entire base game and whatnot. I don't think they had any like the extra stuff in there because I think there's post game stuff. But they didn't play it. It was just the base game, and I watched that 18-hour long video. And I skipped through most like the fight scenes and whatnot, the actual gameplay, just to kind of watch the story and see that kind of stuff. Because if you don't know, I am a huge fan of Norse mythology, and I was really hyped for this game because I liked the original game, and I think I watched someone else's playthrough of it. Again, the original meaning the God of War 2018, right? Not the original God of War. I haven't played those or seen any gameplay. I've seen gameplay of them. I haven't watched them all the way through though. So that's kind of where I am on God of War, and I just think it's a really cool franchise, and the new game's out. So brief thoughts on the story. It's very cool. I like it. It's definitely not 100% like accurate, and there are a few issues I have with it. But overall, it's pretty good. So yeah, it lives up. Well, maybe not lives up to all the hype, but it lives up to a good amount of hype. Maybe it doesn't live up to as much hype, for me personally, because I didn't play it and I was just kind of watching it for the story, and for certain mythological things. But yeah, so overall, pretty good. Those are my basic thoughts. Now I'm gonna get into spoilers. So if you don't want the God of War Ragnarok spoiled for you, click away now. All right, you're gone. Good. So first of all, yeah, I really like the story. The story was good. It did, it does obviously deviate from, God of War. No, it does deviate from the mythology a good amount, and that's mostly due to Atreus being Loki. I think does kind of deviate a lot of the stuff from the mythology, where I feel like in the original God of War, they kind of kept most Greek, most stories within Greek mythology could have happened within the God of War world, where in the Norse mythology, most stories from Norse mythology couldn't have happened in this world, because of the changes, and like I said, mostly stems from Atreus being Loki, right? And they do establish that Atreus is like the Loki, because they make sure to remind you of that, because there are several times where Atreus asks people, like, hey, have you ever heard the name Loki? And like no one's ever heard it. So it's clear that Loki is his name, his like secondary name. And he is Loki, right? He is half frost giant and whatnot. So yeah. And I do like how in this game, they definitely incorporate more of the Loki in there, right? Because in the first game, it wasn't known until the end of the game, so they couldn't really play with that a little bit. This game, they try to. They give him the ability to shapeshift into animals and whatnot, shapeshift, which is pretty cool. Because that's something Loki's able to do. And they do try to say that, he's mischievous, right? Trying to be Loki, right? But he's not really the god of mischief, if that makes sense. Like, I feel like they could have, I don't know, it doesn't really fit, because Atreus, like, he can, like, he does, like, sneak off and do certain things, but it's nothing that, like, makes him super mischievous or, like, Loki, mischievous. So when Loki, the god of mischief, and he's not, like, in this game, Odin is actually a lot more mischievous than Loki is, and, some other characters. I mean, like, he tricks Thor that one time. You know, he, like, goes off, but he doesn't, like, I don't know. I guess there's the whole thing of him, like, you know, trying to be a spy for Odin. But other than that, yeah, he's not super mischievous, but he does have a lot of things. And then they also do some, I want to say course correcting with this, because with Loki, okay, so in the first game, right, they had, the Midgard Serpent, which is, I don't remember the Midgard Serpent's name, but they had the Midgard Serpent, right? The giant snake that goes around the world. In the first game, right? So because they have that, you know, the Midgard Serpent in the first game, it would imply that Loki already exists, because the Midgard Serpent is actually a child of Loki in the mythology, right? However, then it establishes at the end of the game that the Midgard Serpent is, you know, clearly isn't, because, well, you know, Loki is like a child in the first game, right? And clearly did not give birth to, you know, is not the father of this giant snake, and didn't know anything about it. I think Jormungandr is the name, or something like that. However, in the second game, they try to do they course correct it, because so Loki, or Atreus, he gives us a giant soul to a snake, right? And then eventually the snake, you know, they mention, and there's like a line where they say like, oh, the snake's getting bigger. And then they also, at the end of Ragnarok, they also imply that, you know, because they see Thor fighting, a giant snake, and it's implied that it's not, you know, the first snake, it's this other snake they made. So it's weird. So now there's kind of this two Midgard serpents. And so, yeah, so that's like them trying to, you know, course correct and be like, well, no, actually the Midgard serpent is Loki's child, but now there's two Midgard serpents. It's a bit weird. Yeah, or maybe, like, I don't think there's any time travel involved. Like, it's not the same. Like, there's now. So then, where's the first Midgard serpent come from? It's a bit weird. It's a little bit confusing. It doesn't matter that much, but it's cool. They try to actually, you know, it feels like course correction, but it's cool. They try to, you know, incorporate that where, you know, and then also, like I said, same thing's done with Fenrir. Fenrir in the beginning of the game is just a normal wolf, and then, so Fenrir is a normal wolf, but then Loki puts a spell and puts the wolf's soul in a knife or something. And then later they find this like other giant wolf called like Rem or Grem or something like that. I don't know. Some like weird giant wolf that I don't think exists in the mythology. I don't think is an actual thing and is tied up and is not Fenrir. But then they put the soul of Fenrir in the wolf, and then it basically kind of becomes Fenrir. So that's another way of them trying to make Fenrir the son of Loki in a way, right? Because in the mythology, it's Fenrir. I think Fenrir, the world serpent, and Hel, or I don't remember if her name is Hela or Hel. I don't know if Hela is just a Marvel thing, or if in the mythology she's actually called Hela. I don't remember. It might be a Marvel thing. I don't know. But those are the three children of Loki. And so it's cool they kind of incorporate that a little bit in the actual game. It is a bit confusing because there's this wolf that's already down there and it becomes Fenrir. It's a bit weird because then you can't like, and then why was the wolf tied up and like it you know, rips, you know, holes in reality? Because in the mythology, you know, Fenrir, you know, famously in the mythology, you know, was, you know, tied up and was going to be released, you know, for Ragnarok, right? Son of Loki, you know, because I think it was like the three children of Loki were going to, you know, be a main cause of Ragnarok, right? So then they you know, they saw a snake, they threw the snake in the ocean. That's why it's, you know, kind of in the ocean. And then they, you know, they tied up this giant wolf, right? The Fenrir. And I think they made Tyr put his hand in Fenrir's mouth, whatnot, to make sure that, you know, they like let him loose after they tied him up, but they didn't, and then Tyr ended up losing a hand because of that. Like I said, none of those stories could be told because of how different this is, right? And then also Ragnarok is done very differently. For example, and I knew this kind of from the first game, because ironically, the only characters that survive Ragnarok are all the characters, or all the, I think, the gods that die in God of War 2016 or 17, all the gods that die in that game survive Ragnarok, including Balder. I think is that his name? Yeah, Balder. Balder survives. Well, he actually kind of he does die, right? He does die from Loki, same mistletoe thing, right? He does die, but then he comes back somehow for I don't remember exactly. But I do know Maddie and Moody are also two of the only gods that survive Ragnarok, and they die before Ragnarok happens. So that's another thing that's changed up, right? And like I said, just how Ragnarok plays out is very differently too. Most of the key player, well, when I say most, I mean Odin and Thor. You know, they both die in Ragnarok. It's very different. Like in the mythology, Thor dies fighting Midgard, and then Odin dies from Fenrir, right? So I think he actually he literally I think charges into Fenrir's mouth, and Fenrir just eats him whole. So it would have been cool to see that. I know like they make Fenrir all kind of like just a big puppy, but it would have been cool to see them bring back Fenrir, you know, to kind of connect it a bit more to mythology and have him finish off Odin. Or have like Atreus, you know, kind of like get Fenrir to kill Odin. That would have been cool, but you know, alas, Odin dies. And then also, it's a bit confusing too. There's a lot of like prophecies in this game story, like and it's a bit confusing because they're a little. Maybe I need to re-watch it, but all the that stuff seemed a bit confusing because I couldn't tell what was what was correct and what wasn't. Like what was because you have the whole thing of on the poster it's like, oh, my father's gonna die in my arms, but then it was Odin and it wasn't his father. His father didn't die. So that was a bit weird. Is that trying to say like Odin was like a father to Atreus? I don't know. Another thing I want to talk about is the actual depiction of Odin and Thor, right? I thought it was really cool how they didn't show off Odin's design before the game. It was a real surprise when I was like watching that cutscene and then like Odin just appears. Very different than I thought he would look in God of War, if I'm being honest. But it's a unique look. He's definitely a bit more weaselly than I would expect, right? Definitely it doesn't have that big kind of bearded Odin kind of look you have in your head. I still like it. I still don't think it's bad. I kind of like how he acts. He is definitely very different than I would say mythology Odin. Because I think the whole point of the God of War games is to kind of paint the gods in a bit of a negative light. I think that's always the case. But in this game especially, what was I gonna say? Odin is. I do like Odin's motivations though, because he's not. Because they establish, right? Because because Odin's bad, right? But he's not seeking power. He's really only seeking knowledge. This is like crack in space or whatever that has infinite knowledge in it, and that's what he wants. And I like that, right? That's in line with Odin. Yeah, so I was really worried they would just kind of make it generic. Just he's the powerful god. He just he just wants to kill everyone. Evil. But I do like that how they kind of make his motivation knowledge, because that's kind of like the one Odin thing is just to always be wanting. He always wants knowledge. He's always seeking knowledge. That's why in the mythology, why he sacrifices his eyes to drop it in the well of knowledge. In this game, he loses his eye because he tries to look into that weird crack in space. So it's a bit similar, but not really. One's where he willingly gives up his eye, and the other one's where he just kind of looked in and he got rid of his eye by accident. Something I am very disappointed in is they make it seem like Odin is like the god of ravens for some reason. Well, I know why they're trying to do that, because when he gets from place to place, he just kind of summons this flock of crows that go around, and then they're in a new place. Odin he's not the god of crows. Because even in the first game there were tons of crows everywhere, and you'd have to kill them. It was crows of crows of Odin, right? And he's always using crows, which yes, in the mythology, he has crows. He has two crows, right? But that's it. He only has two crows that kind of, that talk to him, that he, kind of spread, tell him all the gossip, right? But in this game, it's like he can like sprout crows out of his arms. He can summon shit ton of crows. It's only crows, right? And also with the crows, crows aren't the only animals Odin has. Odin has two crows, two wolves as well, and a horse with 8 legs. Okay, and we didn't get to see any of that. I was kind of disappointed. Okay, especially with the 8-legged horse. I wanted to see that. Okay, I wanted to see Odin's horse. God damn it, because if you don't know the origin of Odin's horse, you should probably look it up. Look up how Odin got his horse. Okay, I'm not gonna explain it. I don't need to explain it. It's the greatest thing ever. I'm very sad. Like, they could have just at least had, like, maybe Atreus could have put, like, a giant soul in a horse, and it grew an extra 2 legs. I don't know. He put a centipede, soul in a horse. I don't care, okay? We needed to see Odin's horse, and we didn't, and I was very sad about that. Also, Thor's goats. Where are Thor's goats, okay? After seeing the horrendous depiction of Thor's goats in fucking Thor Love and Thunder, okay, I wanted to see an actual good depiction of Odin's goats, but we didn't get to see him. I mean Thor's goats. We didn't get to see his chariot. We didn't get to see his goats. Like, what the fuck? Okay, honestly. How he gets around. That's like his main form of transportation. We barely get to see that. Like I said, we only get to see that in the shittest, not the shittest, but like a bad like Marvel movie, okay, or a fairly bad Marvel movie. But yeah, I was sad about that. I really wanted to see that, but we didn't. I do really like Thor though. I must admit, Thor, top notch. I love his design. I don't think his design. I think there are improvements that could have been made. It's not perfect. I'll say that. The reason I say that is because, like, one, with the goats, I know it's not part of his design, but he really should have had the goat chariot. That would have been really cool to see. We never get to see that anywhere, like I said, except that one Marvel movie. That was kind of bad, and the goats were cringe. Okay, because his goats are really cool. If you don't know this, Thor's goats are really cool. He could kill his goats, eat the meat, and as long as the bones are still intact, he can revive his own goats, right? So he has like kind of an infinite food supply with that. And even like, I think there's like a story where he even like feeds a family, with it. He's like traveling. He's like, hey, you could eat my goats. And he's like, yeah. It's cool, okay? I'm telling you, Thor's goats are cool. And he rides around in the chariot pulled by 2 goats. We don't get to see that. We don't get to see a lot of the animals, right? I feel like it's only the super recognizable stuff, right? They put Fenrir there. They put the World Serpent. I wish we got at least some more obscure things, right? I mean, I guess Thor's, daughter, which I don't even remember if Thor's daughter is a thing in the mythology. I'm going to assume it is, because I know Maddie and Moody are. And I know a lot of people don't know about that. But, yeah. Also, it felt like there was, like, not a lot of gods at all. I'm going to be honest. It felt like it was only, like, Thor and Odin. It was only, like, Thor, Odin, and Heimdall. That the Aesir gods. And then there was, like, Tyr and some of the others. But, like, especially in Asgard, there weren't that many gods. Like, I think, like, I felt like they could have used, like, at least some more, obscure Norse mythology gods. But they didn't use a lot, which I was a bit surprised by. But yeah, also Heimdall, all the homies hate Heimdall. Heimdall sucks in this game, in kind of a good way. But man, Heimdall sucks. Man, I just want to beat the shit out of Heimdall. I'm so glad when he died. It's kind of cool to get a different depiction of Heimdall, I'm gonna be honest, than the one we've seen in like Marvel and whatnot. But yeah, that was cool. Heimdall was cool to see. Tyr wasn't used that much, and I don't know, is Tyr the actual Norse god of war? Because I heard somewhere that Odin is actually the god of war in Norse mythology. I don't know for sure. I need to look more into that. But Yeah. Also, I was so hyped when I saw that they included the squirrel in this game. Okay, on the world tree, they included the damn squirrel. I was so hyped. He wasn't used that much, but I was so hyped that they put the squirrel. If you don't know, this is the epicest thing ever. Okay, Norse mythology. You got the world tree, right, and that connects the 9 realms. On the top of the tree, you have an eagle, which I'm sad they didn't include the eagle. Okay, you got an eagle on the top. On the bottom, you have this dragon who gnaws on the roots, which we do get to see, and he's in a little bit of a boss fight. I do wish he was a bit more sentient, but I digress. So that's what's on the trees, right? But also on the tree is a squirrel, right? And this squirrel, he basically goes to the bottom and the top. He travels between the bottom and the top of the tree, right? He'll go to the bottom of the tree and he'll like spread gossip to the guy on the bottom and say like, hey, the eagle's talking shit about you. And he'd be like, really? And he'll be like, oh, I fucking hate that eagle. And then the squirrel would go up to the top and he'd be like, hey, yo, the dragon on the bottom, he's talking shit about you. And you're like, hey, yo, and he would just like spread gossip. And I was so hyped. They included the squirrel, okay? I was very disappointed that there was no gossip being spread. I don't even know what the squirrel really does in the game, but I wish like I wish he he just like went up and he maybe just like had like imagine the lines of dialogue. Ooh, what if the squirrel gossiped to the two like the two like dwarves or whatever? That would have been so funny. Okay, missed opportunity for sure. But still really good. I still like it. That the squirrel was at least in the game, I'm trying to think of anything else that they really should have included. So sad to see Thor die. And honestly, I wish we had more Thor in this game. Would have been great to see. I really like the scenes he had with Atreus. I think they're really good. Like I said, I just wish there was more of it. And his death was... His fight scenes are really cool, too. Him fighting... Kratos was epic as hell. And... yeah, it was really good. I wish we get to see him eat, because he can eat a shit ton, and that would have been cool. Although he's fat, so it's kind of implied that he eats a lot. Also, he has a bar fight, which I thought was pretty fun. To see him, in a bar fight. However, it does like I do like how they take his drinking like seriously. How it's like him drinking is like a serious plot point in this game, right? And he has a drinking issue, right? And that's like a major factor in the game. And I do like that, how it's taken seriously. Although I don't think he would have been like drunk, if that makes sense. Like Thor would have to drink a lot because like. Yeah, because it doesn't show how much he was drinking, but I mean, he's not really super drunk afterwards. He's kind of just a little bit hungover, because right after he goes and like fights and whatnot, and he's like kind of fine. He just throws up once, but I think he would have to to actually be drunk. He would have to drink a shit ton because he has like the stomach capacity of like a black hole. I think there was this challenge or something where they're like, I drink this entire keg or whatever, and it was just like a horn. No, drink the entire horn, right? And he goes to drink the horn. It's like easy dub, right? He goes to drink all of it, right? And he drinks, and he doesn't drink all of it, and he's like super confused, like what's going on, right? And he drinks, and he's like, yeah, I think he only drinks for like maybe it was a few seconds, I don't know, right? But he drinks a little bit, and he isn't able to finish it, and he's like super pissed about it, right? It's like, oh look, he didn't drink a lot, he couldn't even finish the thing, right? Turns out the thing he was drinking from, right, was actually they used some spell to connect the liquid inside to the ocean, right? And through him drinking the thing, which is directly connected to the ocean, lowered the entire ocean level by several fucking inches. Several inches, my guy. I couldn't even imagine how would you even calculate that? Like how much if you were just to take 1 inch from the from like the ocean level, how much water would that be? Let alone several inches? Just drank it all up. in like 2 seconds. So yeah, so I wish we get to see that. Also, Thor cross-dressing would have been cool. That happens in the mythology too. Yes, you can look it up. I remember, I think I was actually in a play and I played Thor. I was very happy to play Thor, and I actually did that exact thing where the Thor cross-dressing, like I said, it's an actual thing. It's very epic. He goes to trick a troll because he needs to get Mjolnir back. Also, I do like Mjolnir in this game. I do like how he, like when he snaps, it comes back to him. I think it's really cool. He's like, you hear the, it's like the bing, and it comes back, right? I do like that. Because like in the Marvel stuff, and especially even with like Kratos and with the Leviathan axe, it's just they hold their hand out and it comes back, right? I do like the detail of it comes back when he snaps. I do like that. I think it's a cool little touch. Also, the design's pretty cool, as well. And yeah, and it has a lot of weight to it too. I do, obviously they don't do the whole it's worthy thing, because you have to be worthy to wield Thor, because that to wield the hammer. Sorry, because that was never a thing in the mythology. That was a complete Marvel thing. It was true in the mythology that I don't think that no one could wield it except Thor, but that wasn't due to him being worthy. That was due to the hammer being so goddamn heavy that literally no one else could lift it. So yeah, and then also I was very, I know, like, especially these God of War designs, they have a lot of stuff going on, like in the actual design. So it's hard to tell if Thor actually had his belt and gauntlets, because that's another thing, is even with his strength to wield the hammer, he also needs these gauntlets and a belt that gives him extra strength. So strength to the max, and it wasn't really super pronounced. If I was to design Thor, I would definitely make the gauntlets and the belt a bit more noticeable, so you could actually tell like where it is and whatnot. And because like he has a lot of straps on him, so it could easily be said like, oh yeah, that's the belt of strength, right there. Some like, like if you like zoom up real close, but you can't really notice it. It's nothing super noticeable. So I do wish they did that just for his design. Also, I felt like his hair needed to be way longer. I know most depictions of Thor, or most, like, at least in the mythology, I think it's said that he has long red flowing hair, and it wasn't really long. It was just kind of, he did have the beard, which is good. He needs to have the beard, right, to be an accurate Thor depiction, and he does need to have red hair, which is great. I do think his hair needs to be a bit longer. I do believe in the mythology his hair is longer. Yeah, I think that's something that some of the Marvel movies get right, is having the long hair. It does need to be red, because that's just like distinct thing. He's not blonde, okay? I think there is a painting of Thor, like an old painting, like an old Nazi painting or something of Thor where he's blonde. But Thor, yeah, in the mythology, he has red hair. But yeah. And then I'm trying to think of other things. I do, overall, across the board, I really like it. Is it perfect? No. I think there are some improvements that could be made for mythological accuracy. And obviously can't, like I said, because they made major story deviations in the fact that Atreus is Loki. So they can't be, like I said, 100% accurate. But I do like what they did. It was good. It was good. Also, I do have a theory. I might make a whole video on this, but I had this theory that God of War. I have a theory that God of War is the most Christian game ever. Okay. Yeah, you might be thinking like that's weird. Christian, they're like beating the shit out of people. Like, yeah, but hear me out. The whole point of these God of War games, right, are to depict these gods in a negative light, right? So, which is a very Christian thing, because here's the thing, right? There are two written accounts we have of Norse mythology. I think it's called the Prose Edda and the something else Edda. I don't know, but there's basically two accounts we have right today, and these two accounts were both written post the Christianization of Norway, right? Of the North, right? So this was written long after it was Christianized. So we actually don't know how much of Norse mythology that we know of today is actual original Norse mythology, pre-Christianized, or if it's a Christian fabrication, right? People even speculate that big events, even like Ragnarok, is just a Christian, is a made up Christian thing, right? And another reason I pointed out, like I said, even in I think there's one of them that outright kind of says certain things. Like I think in one of the books or one of the accounts we have in Norse mythology, in the beginning, it even says even clarifies that the gods aren't gods. They're like, in this book, Odin is just a wizard, Thor is just some fat dude. They're not actual gods, and all this is explained, yada yada. So it could actually fit into the kind of Christian idea, but still be written and tell the stories, right? So it gives like a preemptive, like, this is not true kind of thing in the book. And I know, like I said, in the God of War games, it doesn't say like, oh yeah, these aren't gods, right? But it doesn't really but these new God of War games, it doesn't depict the gods as being very humble and godly, right? It's obviously trying to depict them as in a negative light and not like the true creators, right, of whatever. And even in this new God of War game, it's a big plot point of Odin is trying to figure out the nature of creation, right? Which makes sense, but would also imply that he doesn't already know it. And obviously, I know in the mythology, Odin is not does not create he creates the world, but he doesn't know his own nature. So I guess that is true, right? In a way, but still, right? Then also, another point of evidence I think I have is that, think about the one character in the new God of War games who is not, right, the one character in this new God of War games who does not originate from kind of this mythology, right? You get the two characters are Atreus and Kratos, right? I guess Atreus kind of does because his mother, but think about Atreus's connection to Atreus's connections to, why am I forgetting his name? Kratos, right? Kratos isn't from there, so in proxy, Atreus isn't from there, right? And he's is one of the good guys in this story. Well, coincidentally, one of the characters who is widely speculated to not be from Norse mythology, to be a Christian made up thing, is actually Loki. Loki is widely speculated by some people to not actually be from Norse mythology and could be just a made up Christian idea, because there are a lot of Christian ideas in Loki, mostly being the scapegoat, right? If there's a problem, everyone blames Loki, and the idea of the scapegoat is a very Christian, Jesus-like thing, right? You have, one guy, takes the sins of everyone, kind of idea with that. So the one character in the new God of War games is coincidentally the one character in the God of War games who's not from the Norse mythology, is coincidentally might be another character who was never in Norse mythology. So there you go. And might be a made up Christian idea. Because I think the only other account that we have of Norse mythology besides the books I mentioned is there's, I think, one account of a Greek man who somehow visited or whatever, and I think he wrote his brief accounts of what the area was like, and this, like I said, pre-Christianization, and he wrote about gods, right? But he didn't say like, oh, this is Thor, this is whatnot. He wrote about the gods as if they were Greek gods. So he said like they worship what's the name? It's like, here they worship Zeus with a hammer or something, right? He describes all these things, right? And there's clearly, it's an accurate, he's describing these gods, the Norse gods, as if they were kind of Greek gods, right? With the names of the Greek gods, right? and he never he describes all the major players. He describes Odin, he describes Thor, he describes I think some other gods as well. I think Freya. I might be wrong on that. But he never describes Loki, right? Which might be a bit bit of a surprise concerning how big of a player Loki is in Ragnarok, right? Like I said, Loki is one of the key players in Ragnarok. So you think being such a big character, it is the god of mischief, yada yada. You think he would be mentioned, but he wasn't. But it could be a coincidence, but we don't know. We don't know. But yeah, that's my rant about God of War Ragnarok. I think it's very cool. If you like this video, leave a like, subscribe. So I've been ranting on for way too long. And go watch the God of War. It's pretty good if you want, or play it, or go watch. And go watch the 2011 film Rango. It's a great film. You should check it out. Really should. Subscribe, like if you want, and yeah, y'all have a nice rest of the day, and see ya. Bye. Ciao.